Warning, this video does contain scenes of people being cut into two fairly often. If this sort of content makes you feel uncomfortable, then feel free to turn back now. Viewer discretion is advised. The Wild West is a popular and common setting when you look at the history of the United States, especially in the 1800s. The mid-1800s also coincides with the Meiji Restoration, which saw Japan ultimately end its Sakoku or isolationist period and open up to the world, adopting Western technology and ideas. Ending Sakoku didn't go smoothly, as there was some debate on how Western technology and ideas would be used, and this period of time was also the setting for most of the Way of the Samurai series. Today we're going to be looking at Samurai Western, a spin-off of the series where East and West collide. But not in Japan. This game departs significantly from other games in the Way of the Samurai series, opting to go for a more action game approach as opposed to the action-adventure with role-playing elements that most of the other games in the series are known for. The game does have a two-player mode, and this is the only part of the game I will not cover due to only having one working controller for the PlayStation 2. So this review will focus on its single-player aspect. In Samurai Western, you play the role of Gojiro Kiryu, a samurai who has come to America in the 1800s to find his brother Rando. Upon arriving in town, Gojiro finds himself attacked by thugs and quickly dispatches them. He soon finds that the thugs are employed by a man named Goldberg, and his men have left the settlements in the area almost as ghost towns by having the adults work in the mines, with the kids in town at the mercy of the thugs. Although Gojiro is more concerned with finding his brother, his moral code in doing the right thing draws him into the conflict. Can Gojiro save the people from Goldberg? What happened to his brother? More importantly, is this game any good? Find out in The Good. I'm a little mixed on the gameplay, so I do have some good and bad to talk about in regard to it. And while the game's more action orientated, the action scenes are quite fun. Gojiro has the ability to cut down enemies with his weapons, but he can also dodge and deflect attacks, which is what you'll be doing for a large part of the game, and dodging successfully and counter-attacking will result in Gojiro dealing more damage with his attack. Gojiro can also pick up things to throw and even pick up enemies to use as human shields or to cut down. He also has a jumping attack which will do more damage and knock the enemy down, making them more vulnerable, but this is a double-edged sword, if you excuse the pun. Gojiro can be hit in the air, which will knock him down alongside being hit by certain weapons, and while he's down, Gojiro will be open to taking more damage. The game, instead of being in a large open world, takes place over 16 stages, with additional stages being available if certain conditions are met. The game does reuse several locations, and these locations will be at different times of the day. As Gojiro clears these stages, he will also gain experience which he can invest into his health, power, attack and defense. He can also gain new weapons and accessories which can alter these stats as well. Accessories are limited to weight and where on the character they can be placed, and you can even change the position of the accessory, which is surprisingly detailed. Weapons have different stances, and these can affect the moves and abilities that Gojiro has. The weapons can also affect the mastery bar that fills up as Gojiro kills enemies. When partially full, you can activate the gauge early, and there's a unique feature based on the stance of the weapon. But when the bar is completely full, Gojiro can enter master mode and dash around taking no damage and dispatching enemies in a single blow until the gauge runs out. Each enemy Gojiro kills in this state will replenish the bar a little, allowing you to extend the time in the mode. At the end of each level, Gojiro gains points based on his performance, and it's encouraged to beat the high score for the level, and you can replay levels with handicaps imposed onto Gojiro to give him a point bonus. These are required for some of the bonus levels and additional extras. After beating the game on normal, hard mode is unlocked, and this will allow you to start unlocking other playable characters. These are only model and voice swaps during gameplay, but it does add replayability to the game, and after beating hard, Insane mode will drop, and once you clear that, you can play as characters from the first two Way of the Samurai games, which is a nice bonus. I do like the action-orientated gameplay, and while it's easy to get into, there is some skill in mastering it. The game's voice work I think is really well done, and there's been a great deal of care with the game's dub. Gojiro is Japanese in origin, and I was pretty surprised when he speaks to a character in English. It's accented English, which I think is a nice touch.
Aren't you scared?
Not at all!
Don't lie to me!
Yeah, I'm scared. Of course I am. But I have to save them. I'm gonna fight the bad guys, just like you.
You'd make a fine samurai. Leave this to me.
Donald, you look after Joey.
Whenever Gojiro speaks to another Japanese character, or if he's talking to himself, he'll speak in Japanese.
向こうの民への悪行許すまじ
The attention to detail, while pretty minor, I definitely noticed and was quite impressed with it. If you're playing as a different character, Gojiro's voice will still play in cutscenes, but a majority of them will use their voice from the game. The exception is the Way of the Samurai characters, who are given voices from some of the characters in this game. However, there are things I think the game could have done better with, and let's explore those in the bad. I feel that the game could have used some more variety given the setting of the Wild West. Where's the obligatory horseback riding sequence or train robbery? Gameplay wise, I also think the open world approach Way of the Samurai used could have worked with this game too. You can still retain the action sequences, but perhaps have them as events that Gojiro would discover or story progression events. That way it can appeal to folks who prefer the style that Way of the Samurai 1 and 2 have established, while introducing the fun action elements this game introduces. I also think missions where you can play as other characters is a missed opportunity as well. Being able to play as other characters to see the chapter from their perspective, or even to learn more about them, would certainly be a welcome addition, and would change up and make the gameplay more complex, since Gojiro's strategy of dodging, deflecting and attacking seems to work on every enemy in the game, so there's little deviation on how you fight the enemy. But the skills lie in consistently timing your counterattacks and minimising damage to yourself. While there isn't a lot on the characters Gojiro meets, the game does provide enough information for you to know who they are and what their goals are, which is appreciated at the very least. While I was constantly in battle throughout the game, it wasn't just the enemies I was fighting. The game's camera could certainly do with some work. While replaying the game on hard to unlock the extra characters, one of the wanted posters I needed was on top of a chandelier in the saloon. The only way I could get to it successfully was to change into first person mode, make sure Gojiro was able to jump onto the chains to get to the chandelier, and then carefully make my way to the wanted poster so I could unlock a new character, all while avoiding gunfire from enemies. Another one was finding the wanted poster in the first level, as it's high up in the air, and even seeing it with the camera, having to judge depth to get the poster, was a minor nuisance too. The game does have a target camera function by holding R2, but if you're in a level with split levels like the saloon, the target camera might lock onto an enemy on a higher floor and really mess up the camera, which annoyed me. It's great for keeping track of bosses that run around though. Other than that, I think we're done here, so let's wrap things up with the opinion. Samurai Western I think is reasonably fun. I'm a little mixed on the game given that it does its job as an action-orientated spin-off well, but I think it had the potential to have been much more. The game's voice work is great, and I appreciate the attention to detail, and the game does make nods to the Way of the Samurai games by having a portrait of Hanzaemon from Way of the Samurai 2 in Goldberg's mansion, and even a western arrangement of the Way of the Samurai theme song played during the final battle. As I mentioned earlier, perhaps fleshing out the variety of the gameplay more and giving the other characters more time to shine, I think would have done some more good, and you'll also be fighting the camera alongside your enemies throughout the game. But overall, I think the game is alright. It's not great, it's not terrible. If you like the Way of the Samurai series, I think it's worth looking into given that it's a spin-off, just don't expect it to play like it. If you're also after an action game where you get to do sick dodges and cut people into two, it's a good game to pass a few hours with. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Samurai Western the really cool cover art for the US release of the game, designed by comic artist Kenneth Rockefort, out of 10. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.